Okay, welcome back. Solo role Mangging, Shadowdark, with some slight changes. Yeah, I think, hey, look, I mean, hacking or changing an RPG is really a big compliment because I could hack any RPG, but I choose to hack this one because it has such a good foundation. So it's a big compliment, really. Just not 100% of a compliment. Anyways, last time we did a funnel. Ran a bunch of peasants through Portal Under the Stars. Which has got to be one of the shortest funnels I think I've ever looked at, really. I think if you're trying to do a funnel in like 2 hours or 3 hours, maybe, this is the one you probably want to look at compared to a lot of other ones. This one really just has only a handful of encounters, and there's a decent chance that they'll just quit before it's over and walk out. So, I think, yeah, this is a pretty speedrun kind of one-shot funnel. But we are not leaving at a one-shot. We had 4 make it through. I think the only one that started was Malcor. Right? He was the only one of the originals that made it all the way through. Junor was like a first replacement, and then Godfrey and Oscar came during the crystal statue battle. So Malcor is the true champion, which is why he gets the icon of a champion. So, we never rolled stats for Oscar. That's right. So charisma is his bread and butter for spellcasting. So I'll key it off of charisma. Beyond that, what can he even do? He can use a dagger and a staff and wear leather armor. So really we're probably looking at charisma the highest, then con and dex. And that's kind of about it. Really very, very limited choice there. So he's mostly going to be using eye bite if we get into combat. I started, I'm sure I've said this plenty of times, but I started with 4th edition D&D. And 4th edition was very much a tactical sort of board game in a lot of ways. There's a very, a hefty focus on combat. Combat was not quick, it was not brutal or anything like that, but it was fun. Not always. And as the years went on, having to do like some basic fight against some wolves as like a random encounter or something was excruciating. Because there was really no quick combat. Everything was just, all characters had just gobs of special abilities and daily powers, encounter powers, all this sort of stuff. Multiple at-will powers with different effects. There was a lot of control abilities, moving things around, debuffing, all that sort of stuff. It was all very tactical. But when the fights were big and good and meaningful, like, it was pretty fucking awesome. Alright, I'm not gonna lie. Like, many, like, and yeah, I mean, now I remember, like, the situation of the battle rather than like the specifics of like turn by turn and stuff, but that's because it's been years. But yeah, I know for a fact that how exciting it was to like pull off your big daily ability and like it's a big success and it's like, oh man, just like, devastating stuff. And it really appealed to me because I kind of was, more of a min-maxer and things like that. So it was just, yeah. But the thing with that was that all characters were kind of designed from the ground up pretty much for combat. And as the years went by, I kind of drifted away from being interested in combat and was more like, okay, how can I build characters that avoid combat and use all their abilities, or what abilities I can get to avoid combat, slip away, or, all sorts of clever stuff. But yeah, every character was kind of built very much combat in mind. They had all these abilities, were very combat focused, and everyone was viable. And that's one of the things you kind of hear is praise about 4th edition these days, which I guess is, I wouldn't say 4th edition is experiencing any sort of renaissance, but I do hear about it somewhat frequently in positive terms, and people are still playing it. So, but it's weird. Then it's always going to be weird for me to go to a game like this or something in the OSR and hear that, okay, so there's the fighter, and the fighter is the best at fighting. The fighter is the combat character that is meant to excel in combat. That is his purpose. And it's always going to be weird because it's like 4th edition, you know, it just wasn't like that. Everybody was good at combat, and everything was kind of meant to be balanced so that every class that you picked was more or less equally viable. I mean, in reality, obviously not. There were balance issues. Some things were better than others, as always, but the intent was everyone was equally viable in combat. That's not the intent here. No one is meant to match the fighter when it comes to combat. And it's just sort of strange. But it's, I mean, true, the thief here in Shadowdark is not meant to ever be on the fighter's level in combat. He's meant to offer all sorts of thiefy potential and utility. The mage. Yeah, the mage can do damage and can do spells and stuff that's pretty powerful, but not really meant to be on the just pure devastation level of a fighter. I mean, maybe at high levels, but I don't know. I mean, we'd have to look at like Shadowdark, like tier 5 spells, because I've never gotten anywhere close to that, so I have no idea. But I think a lot of it is just like various buffs and utility things, not killing spells. But you have here tier 4 Cloud Kill, and you fill a near-sized cube within range with a putrid cloud. Creatures inside the cloud are blinded, take 2d6 damage at the beginning of their turns. And a creature of level 9 or less that ends its turn fully inside the cloud dies. Potentially really powerful, but not really in the same way. I think it kind of requires the DM to, adjudicate that properly and, allow creatures to do that, or really clever play, whereas the fighter is just like, yeah, I hit it with my axe, and he hits it very often and really hard, and it works. But a lot of these spells, yeah, just not really... Okay, Disintegrate. You turn a creature or object into ash. If it's level 5 or less, it instantly dies. If it's level 6, it takes 3d8 damage instead. So level 6 plus takes 3d8 damage. Now, I don't know if a fighter at level 9... I don't know what they're swinging with, really. I imagine, I guess it's not 3d8. I don't know if it scales the same way. I feel like I'm just wasting time again, and we're just doing nonsense. But they're going to get a few... Okay, so they're going to get Weapon Mastery, right? And that's going to be half your level. So at level 9, that's going to be 4. So they'll have +5 attack, +5 damage. And then depending on talents that they roll, they're going to have +4 strength almost certainly. So really they'll be rolling like +9, +10, depending on this talent and stuff. +10 or 11. But damage is not going to be quite as high. It's going to be +5. And there really isn't anything else that adds to damage, right? So mostly they're going to be swinging just the same sword, D8, 1d8 +5. But then there's magic weapons and stuff, and some of these, like Sword of the Ancients here is an example, is a +2 longsword. You can carve through any material. Sounds pretty powerful. I don't know if there's anything meant to be higher than... I guess there's a couple things that are +3. Yeah, +3 greatsword. So, really, they'd be rolling like +12 or +13 on their attack roll. Which means, yeah, they're probably gonna always hit. And then 1d8 or 1d12 plus 8, because you don't add strength to the damage. So 3d8 from a wizard spamming Disintegrate is pretty good. Certainly pretty good, considering it's an auto hit. But they have to roll, and it's a tier 4, tier 5, tier 4. So they have to roll 14 or higher on their int, and, you know, they're gonna struggle hitting that every time unless they have advantage on it. But yeah, I think the point is fighters are kind of the combat characters, and that's just weird and wild to me. Takes a little getting used to. And that's because combat is not the focus of these old school D&D games. Apparently. I have heard otherwise from people that played back in the 80s, you know, that loved combat, but I'm sure every table was different. The OSR had to be born out of something. These design philosophies had to be born out of some style of gameplay, and so I don't know. I'm sure some people played it without a lot of combat or interest in combat and was trying to avoid stuff back in the day. Anyways, we're moving on. Right, so, yeah, we were rolling stats for Oscar, I forgot. Okay, so 5d6 for Charisma. That's unquestionable. Perfect. Oh, the 18 Charisma. The party man. Party boy Oscar. Excellent. Yeah, I know. That's exceedingly rare with 3d6 down the line. I know. But we did this style of generation for all the characters here. That's the only 18 we got, so, you know. And the thing is, with Shadowdark, you're going to have a lot of characters that have 18. By the time they hit level 4 or 5, there's going to be a lot of 18s among your party, so it's not that big of a deal. 4d6 dex, that's good. Okay, well now we're... The odds of that, pretty slim. He's still not a very good character. We'll see con, I guess, 4d6. Yeah, there you go. 10 con. Boom. So he has 4 health, and he can't really use any weaponry or anything. So really, he just has good AC, but he still dies mostly in one hit, and he's good on his spells, which his spells are not that amazing. Except for Charm Person, which we already had advantage on. So we're pretty much always going to nail Charm Person if we want to use it. And then 3d6 Strength. Yikes. Int. Yikes. Whiz. 12. Okay, he is a fucking himbo or something. He's like a male model. And that's what he is. He's a male model. And he's a witch. Right, so we're gonna hand the longbow over to Junor, who's the only one that can actually use it. And yeah, I think these all take a slot and everything, so that's correct. So the hand axe, I guess he doesn't really need the hand axe. But I don't know if anyone else can use a hand axe. He can use all melee weapons. I think that includes a hand axe. Hand axe is not in the base book, so it's a little hard to say. But I think if you're going to tell me all melee weapons, yeah, and that includes javelins, then yes, Malcor can use the hand axe, so we'll swap that over. Okay, good. We'll delete that. And delete that. We'll hold on to the scale armor because we'll probably sell it. And I'll, yeah, I mean, we picked up my rope on the way back. On the way out. Man, I don't know, caltrops. It could be useful. They're not very good, though. 1 damage and can only move at half speed for 10 rounds. Yeah, if we're gonna do a lot of ranged attacks and we plan an ambush, I suppose it is useful, so I'll grab it. I stashed my other arrows and short bow. I think we probably stand by that. No one can use the short bow, so fuck it. Just delete it. Delete the arrows. And we stashed a spear. I think that's probably fine. That's probably fine. And then the iron spikes. Yeah, we'll pick up those. Okay. So now we're good. We are ready to rock. So we head back to our little village. And now it is time to make the village and make the map. For an open-ended campaign here, sandbox campaign, we're going to make a hex map. I have Worldographer up, and we're going to be using... Now, Shadowdark does have rules for generating a hex, kind of on the fly as you go. So each time a character is moved into an empty hex, roll on the new hex table, which determines if the terrain is the same as the one they're leaving from, or if it's a little different or drastically different, something like that. Then you have to roll a d6, and if it's a 1, you get a point of interest. So you roll on this d20 point of interest table, which has reasonable chances of getting a town, a village, a city, natural landmark, or monster nests and cave formations. But there's some, other things in there: holy shrines, temples, towers, keeps. And I guess you also can roll, see the danger level of the location. And if you roll a cataclysm, roll a cataclysm. Is there a chance of that? I don't see that listed anywhere. It says if you roll a cataclysm, so I'm not quite sure what to make of that. But then it has some cataclysms. Probably mentioned somewhere. There it is. Okay, development. You can roll, you roll on the development. And then if you get a 1 on that d20, you roll on the cataclysm table. Okay. So we could do this, and that's when I did that other generic Hexcrawl. I believe the person that generated that used these Shadowdark rules to make that map. So it is perfectly viable. But we're going to go a little step farther for a more dedicated tool that I purchased and would like to try out. This is Sandbox Generator. And I bought a couple PDFs at the same time. They were in this vein, and I was trying to work on a Hexcrawl, but I didn't actually end up using these yet. So there's this one that I think is intended to plan out a hex map. And then the other one I got is filling in the blanks, which I think is intended more at the table if you just need to roll up something interesting that happens to the party. But we want to generate this as a planned thing. So the only oddity of this one is that the hexes it's designed for are 2 miles, which is fine for a real close-up scale of this small region. But yeah, eventually you're going to want to expand that, zoom out to 6 miles. And I think they do that here. This is a 6-mile hex, which is a cluster of however many 2-mile hexes. No, this is not. This is larger than that. This is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This is a 10-mile hex, which is very strange. But yeah, you could just cluster it as 6 miles, and it wouldn't be too big of a problem. But it's a little strange, but the general idea is the same. Alright, so our starting hex. We're going to roll a d10 here. For this is not the hex that this place is in. This is the hex next to it. So a d10, we got 1. So it's very simple. It's going to be a grassland. Okay. So we're going to go, we're going to make a new map, new world kingdom map. And I guess we want this to be fairly big, because these are 2-mile hexes, so we want to generate a pretty hefty size. So let's just go 60 by 60 for now. And I'm generating it as one big blank. There you go. Nice hefty size map that we can work with. And yeah, it makes it black to start, and I don't like that, so I have to go through and blank it out. And there might be a way to blank out all of them at once, or generate all of them at once as one color. I don't know. I futzed around with it for a while because I wanted to just generate a blank map. This is the best solution I found, but I'm sure there's a better way. So anyways, we're going to pick a spot right smack dab in the middle of this region, and that's going to be our starting grassland hex. And that's going to be our home village, our little podunk village that we're desperate to escape from because we're sick of being peasants. We're sick of farming, Dad. We're going to be awesome heroes. And we're going to go into this crazy little dungeon nearby that everyone knows is horrible, and actually, no one knows about it. That was the whole point, is that this only opens up every 50 years. So yeah, we have to inform some people of the village that their husbands and children died trying to get loot. And we're not going to give you any part of it. We're not going to give you any share of it. Because it's our treasure, and we're going to go be heroes and leave this place behind. So, yeah, this is going to be a big region. But these are 2-mile hexes, so, you know, you can travel 24 miles a day. So we can travel pretty quickly across this region if we were really determined. But I've not worked at this scale yet. I've only done 6-mile hexes. So this would be a pretty big map at that scale. Almost there. You'd think there's definitely is a way to do this, right? There's gotta be. People that are familiar with the program are like, oh god, what is he doing? No one familiar with the program is watching. We can be safe on that bet. Almost there. Filling in all the dots. Alright, we're good. Okay, so we just want a spot somewhere right in the middle. 30-30 is our middle, I think. And we're gonna go with grassland, which is just flat farmland. 30-30, boom, there's our middle. Okay. So now we're going to generate the 6 hexes around it, starting with the one on top, then continue clockwise. And you do that because you have a 50% chance each time of it being just the same. Okay, so we have to do our rolls. So let's just generate the... We'll just do 6 rolls here of D10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so it's a 4. So this one on top is the same. But then we got 9. So then it became a marsh, which is going to be classic flat marsh. And then the next one was also a 9. So it's also going to be marsh. Then the next one was 5, which is same as the previous hex, marsh. God, what is this village? Then we had 10, which is mountains. And then the last was a 7, which was a forest. Okay. So we'll go forest. Okay. There's our start. And I know they're not going to tell me to do this yet, but I'm going to put that there. And that's our starting home. It's our starting village. Okay. Oh, okay. The previous hex was the middle one. Oh, okay, okay. I feel like they... Yeah. Let's start with the one on top, then continue clockwise. But you were always meant to be going from the middle out so that the 1 through 5... Okay, so that means that actually this one was also this. There you go. Kind of sandwiched in there a little bit. Alright, so now we're going to radiate out. So we're going to look at this one and then go this way. Look at this one, go this way, this one this way. So from this top grassland... Well, let's just roll another 6, because we're going to need another 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, most of these are going to be the same as the other ones. So this is this. 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 But then we got an 8 and a 9. So the 8 is hills, and then the 9 was marsh. So this is also marsh. And this other one is hills, which is, like this. Whoops. No. There you go. Okay. So there's our snowflake, as they call it. Once these 6 have been generated, the points of the snowflake, roll for the next one, using them as starting points to complete the layer. Right, so now we're going to go from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here, blah, blah, blah. So another 6 D10s. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, all of them are going to be the same as the previous, except for one, which is going to be marsh again. A lot of marshes in this area for some reason. Alright, so that's the same as that one. 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 And then this is the marsh. And then that's going to be the same as that one, which is also a marsh. A lot of marshes. This is a wet area, man. A wet fucking area. Okay. After this step, the hex map already has reached an interesting size, 19 hexes. We recommend stopping at this point. To further expand the Hexcrawl, repeat the procedure several times and stick the resulting hex maps together. This is the method used in the rest of the book. So basically start over, redo that whole process multiple times, and then just align those together. So basically, I would start, like here or something, and do that same exact process again. Or give or take. Like here, I guess. Or, yeah, something like that. But you could just keep spreading outward further and further. From our central way with the same process. But this is good enough for right now. I mean, there's plenty of adventure to be had in this little region, I'm sure. Because now we generate features. Prominent things that can be found inside the hexes. Okay. For a traditional campaign, first going in a dungeon, then exploring the wilderness at higher levels, first X always contains a village, second one a dungeon. If you are not interested in this kind of campaign, simply roll or choose a settlement for the first X, then roll for the next X's. For all the following X's, roll on this table and subtable. Now, that's pretty interesting, because that means that every single hex will have something in it, whether it's a landmark, a settlement, a lair, or a dungeon. That is a high amount of density. Especially at 2 miles. But that does seem to be the case of what they're looking for density. So they have their settlement there, and then they have, like, look at that. There's 5 dungeons within, like, a 4-mile radius of this town, along with, like 3 other settlements, a castle, some sort of tower. Like, this is a dense region, man. Compare this to Shadowdark's rules for generation, where for each hex, roll a d6 on a 1. That hex has a point of it. So like a 17% chance per hex that there's something interesting there. That is wild. Now, most of them are going to be landmarks. Which, yeah, I mean, just could be like a berry bush. Apparently. A dead tree or something like that. Interesting. I mean, 50% of the things you generate are going to be these landmarks of varying types. And then you get into settlements, lairs. And there's a lot of settlement information of generation, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I mean, it just seems very dense. I don't know. Dungeons. A lot of information here about dungeons. Yeah. I'm not generally interested in making my own dungeons. But that's what a lot of this is. Coat of arm generation. Criminal organization generation. There's plenty of things here to generate your whole kind of campaign, your Hexcrawl campaign. Which I guess is, yeah, I mean, that's what this is for. But, like, even just, like, generating desserts. You have a dessert table. Look at this. You can have cream pudding. Sandwiches. Tuna and mayonnaise. Yum, 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 yum. Alright, anyways. I guess we'll follow we'll do what it tells us. Who are we? Who am I to argue? I think we have to put the dungeon we already did. I mean, we don't have to. It's not relevant anymore. No one's going to go back to it. It's kind of pointless to put it on the map. And we'd rather have, like, some other dungeon in the area that we could do. So I guess let's put a level 1 dungeon in... Let's put it in the mountains. I think that's somewhat interesting. So we'll just slap down a little dungeon symbol of some kind in the mountains and call it a day. Alright, there you go. So there's our level 1 dungeon. I don't know what it is. I mean, I have a lot of dungeon modules, so I'm sure we could find something. But we want to then generate all the following hexes. So these are going to be D6s. Now, I will tell you, the paid version of Worldographer, which we have, can just generate Hexcrawl locations. And it'll just slap down random symbols and stuff everywhere. I don't know if it generates, like, any details beyond that. I don't remember. But you can just do that if you want it to be kind of random. And I mean, this is random, so what's the difference, really? But we'll go piece by piece here. So let's do the forest. That got a 5, which means that there is a layer there. So, you know, I think you just want to use these generic symbols and then sort it out later. So we just want to use that monster symbol there, which is this. Okay, so you got that. That's a layer. And then we go for the next hex straight north of us. That's a 1. So that's a landmark, which is that little flag. I'm sure we've got a little flag. Well, shockingly not really. Not really. I guess I have this point of interest symbol. Or this monument symbol, either way, but we'll do that. Then the first marsh. That's a 6. So now that is a dungeon. That is a full-scale dungeon. With rooms and traps and loot and all that. So we have 2 dungeons nearby us. Obviously, we're going to be doing a dungeon. I mean, this is a free-form campaign, but it is Shadowdark, and there aren't many options outside of doing dungeons. We can roll up some random quests and stuff, and maybe come up with some sort of open-ended kind of mission above ground. But we are in Podunkville, surrounded by dungeons, so, you know. But we are interested also in selling this treasure, so kind of like at least some sort of bigger settlement nearby. But the scale here is just so weird. 2 miles away or something, 4 miles away. I mean, that's like, that's a very short trip. We're like living in this town's shadow, the city's shadow. This is supposed to be like the wild borderlands. Isn't that how you're usually supposed to start these campaigns? So, I don't know. This is kind of a weird generation. I'm pretty sure the Shadowdark rules... I think the intent is a 6-mile hex because the overland travel information is, yeah, hexes are 6 miles across. So this generation is based on 6 miles, and points of interest are few and far between. Whereas we're like living in a toy box, really. We're living in like an Ubisoft game where there's just, you keep stumbling over like dungeons and, you know, layers and points of interest and stuff. All right, but the next marsh, I suppose. 5. So that's another layer. This town seems kind of fucked. Okay, and then the last one is a 1, so another point of interest. Alright, and there's our starting 6 around our village. Looks pretty terrifying. Now, a layer, you know, it's a 2-mile hex distance, and a layer could just be like a pack of, I don't know, 15, like, giant crocodiles or something like that. Or whatever. Not really like a big threat to the village, because they're just out there in the swamp nearby. But yeah, anyways, we should then move on and do the outside. So let's start from the top and just go around. So I need 3, 6, 9, 12 D6s. Just do that. Okay, there's all our numbers. Perfect. Okay, so the we got 3, 4, 3, which is all gonna be 3, 4, 3. We got this, but then we have a settlement, and we have to decide the size of the settlement. So that's also just a D6. Could be anything. 3. It's a city. So we are definitely living in the shadow of a city. Doesn't make any sense. Kind of bonkers. They're right on the marsh there, but it's a whole city. No farmland. Fuck your farmland. Oh boy. It's kind of weird. I feel like that generic Hexcrawl I did made more sense to me, and it was more scattered around. But that's because it used the Shadowdark rules. And it was like a decent enough density, right? There was like plenty of things in that area. This is just kind of weird. Alright, the next 3 are 663. 2 more dungeons. Dude, you can't have this density of dungeons in your world. This is crazy. Unless I'm doing something wrong. Okay, here's a whole thread in the solo role-playing subreddit. Seems you roll a feature for every hex. At 6 miles, it seems like a crowded map, let alone 2 miles. Has anyone used it this way and has it been okay? Most arguments seem in favor of it. Most arguments seem to point to, like... So here, this person says... In the environment surrounding medieval Siena, there are 17 castles. From my college medieval history courses, on average it took 100 peasant farmers to support 1 noble. Yet there are 17 castles, plus the city itself, for a huge population of non-food producers that need supporting. Yeah. All medieval modern Siena, Italy, including the surrounding countryside, hills, farms, and over 17 castles fit in a single 6-mile hex. It's a sparse fantasy setting that only has 1 or 2 points of interest in 6 miles. A 3-mile hex is still a large space, but at least it's 1/4 of the area of a 6-mile hex, resulting in a denser and more discrete region defined in less abstracted terrain and content detail. I suppose so. It just feels wild because these are just dungeons that you have to flesh out. But not every one of these dungeons has to be fucking barrow maze, you know? These dungeons could literally be more like a barrow mound. Just like 4 rooms or something like that, and a little bit of a danger and some treasure. That is very true. And I think we can definitively say that the marshes here are a dangerous location. And that should kind of, work into your setting a little bit. Then a point of interest there. Then another 5, which is a lair. And then another point of interest. Then 2 more points of interest. Another settlement. So I have to roll a d6 for that settlement. 4. Which is, what? Castle. Okay, that's fine. There's a castle out in the swamp. Maybe it's abandoned. You know, not necessarily populated. Could be populated by hostiles or something like that. Who knows? We'll put this symbol. It's a castle. It's not a fort. Well, I guess it's there. You go. Yeah, castle. It's fine. And then the last thing is another layer. No, yes, another layer. All right, and there's your... So this is 2 miles. Some people are suggesting 3 miles. Either way, I mean, it's not that big of a factor one way or the other. I mean, I guess it sort of is in the actual amount of, like, square miles involved. So I'm fine with 3 miles, and you really could just make this 6 miles. Like, I mean, it's whatever you say it is, right? It's whatever scale you determine it to be. The book was designed with 2 miles, but it doesn't, you know, it's easily changed if that's what you want it to be. So this could be 6 miles. But yeah, I mean, I suppose people are right. There's a lot of... And the other argument is that it's just more interesting to have a dense area where there's always something going on, something to find in each spot. And I suppose that's true, because just traveling through empty hexes and not finding anything is not particularly exciting. And if the players are aware that there is something of interest everywhere, you know, they might be more likely to explore the wilderness rather than just moving from point to point. Okay, so we got our stuff. Big settlements have a domain of 7 hexes, the one they are located on and the 6 hexes around. If multiple domains of this type have common hexes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so... technically, then, this is not part of that city's domain. Whatever you want to do with that information, I'm not sure. Okay. Hamlets and villages located in the domain of a city castle must pay a tithe to the local lord, but are under their protection. So we do not have their protection. What is this village? I mean, I guess that's... you start thinking of your backstory here. What the fuck is going on with this place? Here's your random encounter table in the wilderness. So, there's always a chance of a dragon or a wizard. Always. They're out there. Most commonly, it's going to be NPCs. More or less friendly, who at first glance do not belong to a faction. Yeah, do not belong to a faction. So it's just NPCs out in the wilderness with you. That's the most common result, which is kind of wild. Beyond that, though, I guess not necessarily the most common result. 8 to 11 is a biome, so a monster rolled or chosen on the fitting table. Do not belong to any faction. Or a faction. If there's no faction in the current hex or an adjacent ones, roll a biome encounter instead. Alright. Landmarks. Yes. Be anything ranging from a meeting point, a dangerous place, an obstacle encounter when traveling, or a small adventuring locale. So natural, artificial, and magic. After generating the nature of all landmarks, use the following table to determine what can be found at a location, and especially the chance of treasure. Alternatively, it can be done during play when exploring the hex. So a D6, determine if there's a hazard there. So, like, it could collapse, or it's trapped or something. The place itself is dangerous. It's empty, but it does have a possibility of treasure. 15%. Oh no. Well, yeah. So you roll a D100 then. So very slim chance of an empty place having treasure. 25% chance of it being hazardous and having treasure. Special means a mystery to solve or something is happening, usually with a related reward. And then if there's monsters, 50% of it having treasure. All right. So let's go around. We'll roll one for directly for the north. This is going to be a D6. A D6, a D6, and a D10. 2, 2, 7. Okay, so it's a natural landmark directly to the north of us. It's flora, and it's a fallen tree. That's what's to the north. That's a point of interest. That's a landmark. Everyone knows. Everyone around here knows about the fallen tree to the north of us. It's well known in these parts. So there is a way. Well, yeah, so we can just put a label on there, I suppose, but I guess you want to generate more information than that, right? Because then you need to generate. You could roll when you arrive, but if we're gonna plan out the immediate area, I guess we can roll another D6. 2. So it's empty, and there's a 15% chance of treasure. There's no treasure. So it's. I mean, what are we doing here, right? What? What are we doing? This is literally just a fallen tree. That everybody's like, oh yeah, man, I remember when that tree stood tall. We'll never forget. That's really on my map. And players are gonna like, okay, let's explore every hex. You know, let's explore every there's something in every hex. There's something cool. We got to explore them all. So let's just go straight north. We're gonna go into the hex to the north, and we're just gonna search for the whole place. We're gonna look for anything unusual. It's like, okay, you find, oh boy, you find the fallen tree. That's what it's known as. So, oh, okay. And what's going on there? What is there treasure? Are there monsters? What do we see? You see a fallen tree on the ground. Okay, we search it. We're gonna look all around. We're gonna look everywhere. We're gonna really examine the tree and find anything unusual. Yep, it's a fallen tree. That's everything. That's the whole thing. Like, why? I don't get it. Why is this a thing that you can find? And there's loads of them. And this is the most common result. Is like a berry bush or a mushroom circle or a pond. I mean, I guess some of these, we happen to roll empty, but again, that's also one of the most common content results. And it's very unlikely to have treasures. So most of these, the most common result, really, is what I rolled. That it's just an empty, fallen tree with nothing unusual. And I know I'm I'm upset that the area is so dense with landmarks and things like that, but then I'm also upset that the landmarks are just pointless. So I feel like we can kind of fix my two issues here by just canceling each other out. And it's just like, you may as well just make it blank. Like, honestly, we may as well just make it blank, because really it's fucking blank. Right? So, here, we'll just, boom, blanked out, because that's nothing. I mean, that's nothing. I can't put that in my game. I can't have that fallen tree conversation with players and they find absolutely nothing there. I'll get made fun of. So no, not every hex has something in it, all right? Let's be clear. Most hexes have something in it. Oh, boy. Okay, what's next? We have the landmark directly to the south of us. So we got 4, 6, 4. This is gonna be spicy. This is the one. It's artificial. Okay, here we go now. Worship. It's a cross. Oh shit. There's like a big cross embedded in the ground here. Like two massive tree trunks just intertwined in a cross shape. It's cool. And it's gonna have some insane content in it. Okay, special. There's a mystery to solve. There's something happening here, usually with a related reward. What does that mean? Use the following table to have a general idea of what may be done here. It can be related or not to the landmark, because landmarks tend to attract people and monsters. Okay, we're going to roll a d12. Here we go. 1. Arbitrate a dispute. Okay, there's a dispute going on here. 4. Murder investigation at the big giant weird cross. How random. Oh, someone's like nailed to the cross. So you approach this scene. And of course, you know, this is narrative timing. So the scene it happens exactly when the players arrive. And it never is, you know, it's like Schrodinger's encounter or something. That's always how it is. So as soon as the players find this massive cross to the south of their village, there's like a bunch of people gathered. Where did they come from? I don't know. You know, they're like hippies or something. They wandered the land. I don't know. Who knows? But one of their own got nailed to this fucking cross. And there's an investigation amongst them of who did it. Now, is that an encounter that players would be interested in solving? Well, I mean, I don't know. Do they even want outsiders' help in, like, figuring this out? If we're like, hey, we could help. Well, why don't we help you? Well, we're good at investigating murders. Like, well, piss off. We don't know you. No, it's, I mean, they gotta offer, well, they don't have to offer any sort of reward. It's not really realistic. They probably don't seem like they come from a lot of money. I mean, it's right near our village, so you could just make that these are villagers. So we come by here and we see a bunch of our kinsmen out by the old cross because someone nailed somebody there. Or, I mean, it's not necessarily that you have to, that the dispute is like going on at the cross or anything. You could just find the body like nailed there, and then the players have to kind of solve it. I guess that's probably makes more sense. And maybe if it's someone from the village, then they should like know who it is and like, oh man, that's old man Jenkins. He got himself nailed to the old weird cross out here. And hopefully they are somewhat heroic and, you know, investigate and want to see this solved for the good of their town because someone murdered another person here. You know, it says treasure should be chosen by DM on case-by-case basis. It does not necessarily have to be gold or valuable items. It can also be information, increased reputation, a new ally, etc. Yeah, but most people like treasure. Or gold or something like that. So in this case, I'd probably have the mayor of the town dig out some old magic dagger out of his asshole or something he's been holding on to for 80 years. Like, oh, well, here, you deserve it. That's classic RPG shit. Alright, well, I mean, that's better than the stupid fallen tree. At least we came up with something. So we're going to put here, cross murder. Okay, and we're going to, that's way too big. Come on now. Still too big. Cross murder. Done. Okay, excellent. Now we have the landmark. We have a lot of landmarks. This will take forever, and most of these can be generated if we go there. So there's the cross murder. Let's do the mount. Well, yeah, again, I don't really want to create a dungeon. I feel like I'd rather just pick a dungeon. I don't really have any. I don't know if I have many dungeons that are just like. Oh, you know what I have? We do have the, hold on, Trilemma Adventures, which are pretty good. I have never actually run any. There you go. So the Trilemma Adventures. 55 fantasy adventure sites, regions, and settlements. So these are going to be a pretty wide variety of locations and things like that. Some of them are dungeons like this with a kind of a unique. They're all pretty fucking unique from what I've read. But here you have the Steeps of the Erminig. Steeps of the Erminig, I'm sorry. The steeps are a network of natural caverns within a deposit of compacted gravel. The water trickling through is eroding the rock rapidly, and the entire cavern system is filled with wet, abrasive sand. This sand soon gets everywhere, in boots, clothing, eyes, chafing and blistering the skin. These are all really, like, system agnostic and stuff. Just fantasy. So they do include creatures. I guess they have a beast share, but I don't know how much. I don't think they give stats for anything. They're meant to be used with any system. So this is just come up with creatures, come up with stats for your own shit, basically. So, yeah, I mean, you could throw one of these dungeons in there pretty easily. There's not really, this is just any sort of dungeon. You could put this anywhere, essentially. So these are not bad. Here, you know, if you've got like a tower or something, some sort of castle or fort, you know, we could use this as well. Another tower of some kind. This is deep underground, some sort of artificial construction underground. You know, you could be doing most of these pretty easily. But then some are above ground, like little settlements. Though flesh be vast. You got like a river in a gorge, goes down into this very interesting location. Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually run any of these, but what I have read is pretty cool. Okay, here. This looks good. This is each summer a clan of Rikalu emerges from the depths to a network of cliffside caves sacred to them. There, the very air is filled with the power of a host of ancestral necromancers. Their whispers grant Nandolib an unconscious transformative power. So that's it. That's all you have to do. So then you would just go to the text here, and we'd write the necromancer's wish. Okay, and that would be what's put there. Nah, hold on. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So you can do that if you just want like a relatively smaller little dungeon. I mean, this isn't super small or anything, but it's not insanely big. Whereas like the one at the marsh, we could make much bigger, multiple levels, or, you know, 40 rooms or something like that. Axe has far greater detail about generating your region, your realm, and everything, and populating it. Not your realm, just the setting, yeah. because they have like a very general idea of the density that they're looking for and how many types of points of interest and things like that. So here, how many rooms does a typical dungeon have? How long does it take to clear? In general, a mega dungeon has hundreds of rooms spread across a number of levels. These will take 40 to 80 sessions or more to complete. A large dungeon has 60 to 120 rooms spread across 1 to 3 levels. A kilo dungeon of this sort will take about 8 to 15 sessions. A standard dungeon has 15 to 25 rooms spread across 1 or 2 levels. A standard dungeon will take about 3 sessions. Small dungeon has 2 to 10 rooms, usually on 1 level. This will take 1 session or less to complete. A lair might range from a den in a tree to a village, but it is characterized by featuring one type of monster in its native habitat. Most take 1 session or even just 1 encounter to handle. And then a landmark might be a place of power, a hidden mountain pass, a buried treasure trove, grove of rare woods, or other interesting feature of the region. Most of them are explored quickly. The easiest way to get 90 sessions of content. That's what they're always looking for like the Axe kind of campaign, is 90 sessions of content. Easiest way is just to use a commercial mega dungeon, such as Dwimmermount, which can fill up an entire campaign. However, mega dungeon campaigns often keep the players so tightly focused on the dungeon that they don't take full advantage of the full scope of Axe. If you want to offer your players this sweeping adventurer to King arc, you'll want to distribute the adventure all across the sandbox. We recommend placing a total of 25 to 30 points of interest with sufficient size to provide 90 sessions of play. So, 1 large low-level dungeon, 2 to 4 standard low-level dungeons, 1 large mid-level dungeon, 6 to 8 standard mid-level dungeons, 6 to 8 small mid-level dungeons / layers, 1 large high-level dungeon, 4 to 6 standard high-level dungeons, 3 to 5 small high-level dungeons / layers, and any number of landmarks. This will yield about 18 to 27 sessions of low-level play, 36 to 47 sessions of mid-level play, and 27 to 38 sessions of high-level play. It's slightly more material than you need for the PCs to advance through the levels. That's the desired outcome. If the PCs have to visit every point on your map, you haven't really offered them any freedom. Yeah, it's all pretty like... I don't know. It seems like something Abed would do on Community or something, and really just map out like exactly how many sessions this campaign is going to take. I don't know, it's just kind of wild. But I can't argue with it either, because it's like, yeah, that sounds all correct if you're going to have a lot of dungeon play in your campaign. Because that is... To have enough content for your party to reliably advance from 1st to 14th level, you need 352 hours or about 90 sessions worth of content. 12 of low level, 36 of mid level, 40 sessions of high level. Playtesting has shown the average party of adventurers will explore about 2 dungeon rooms per hour of gameplay. Wow, that's the average rate. In Axe, at least, which I felt was kind of a slower game compared to like Shadowdark. But yeah, 700 rooms for you to explore. Okay. Wild. But that means that one of these 4 dungeons that I've slapped down here should be a larger one. Perhaps, a large low-level dungeon, 60 to 100 rooms spread across 1 to 3 levels. So for that, we're probably not looking at Trilemma, I don't think. We're going to look for something a little more expansive. Let me dig into my collection here. There's a lot of DCC stuff that I haven't looked at that could be of value. There's the Incandescent Grottos, I suppose, which I have read. I actually have read through. So maybe that's not as good because I've read through it already. Shit. I don't really have something off the top of my head here that I'm like, oh yeah, that would be good. Because there's a lot that I've just, like, grabbed without really reading it or anything, so I don't have an extensive knowledge of everything in my collection here. I lean towards looking at something in DCC rather than... 'cause I don't have much for OSE yet. And if I look at DCC... oh god, I mean, so many of these is just like... I don't even know what level they are. I'd have to open that, and then I don't know how big they are. We could sort by size, I guess. But then... who knows, man. Here's Sunken Ziggurat, level 5. That's a little high. Moon Slaves of the Cannibal Kingdom. That seems a little out there. DCC in general is kind of out there, I suppose. I know. Here's a level 4 adventure, but level 4 DCC is pretty powerful. I think really we'd be looking at level 1, and that's about it. Yeah, too many that are just kind of higher level. Here's Elzamon and the Blood Drinking Box, a level 1 adventure. I have no idea if it's a good level 1 adventure or anything. This is the danger. And it doesn't look like the dungeon is especially big. We need something a bit more classic. We need... yeah, DCC is weird. But I think we'd want probably something more in the OSE or, you know, general OSR. So I don't know. I may have to look... and I know, like, you could just generate your own. And I'm sure plenty of people do. But I'm just not good. Yeah, I have just a lot of PDFs here that I don't even know what they are almost. You know, I just go on sprees of just on drive-through RPG sometimes. Which one is this? Oh no, I know what this is. No, okay, that's not what we're looking for. Exciting stuff, I know. Well, we could look at something in the old school Essentials Adventure Anthologies. Because we did Barrow the Bone Blackguards. That was pretty good. But... no, I mean, no, none of these are that big. These are all pretty short. Big adventure, like big dungeon with 60 to 120 rooms are not like crazy common, especially to have it be good. Like you want it to be good. That's the key thing. This is not... no, this wouldn't be it either. No, I don't know if I have one just off the top of my... I may have to search. I may have to go online. Otherwise, just I could throw Incandescent Grottos, because that is pretty big. And sort of fits the bill. I mean, we may not even do it. I don't know. No, that's way too small. Although this is a decent one for a small dungeon. Okay. Alright. And it's designed for Shadowdark, so I guess that helps. Okay, alright, fine. So, alright. So this is Incandescent Grottos for OSE. This is along with Hole in the Oak and Winter's Daughter and Waking of Willoughby Hall. This is another one of like the really popular ones, often recommended. And it's often linked to Hole in the Oak because there's like a river running like right through it. And so it's very easy to combine Hole in the Oak and this one. For a lot of... that's a big dungeon, you know, if you combine all that together. So here you can see this is level 1. And then this is level 1, this is level 2. So yeah, you're looking at 56 rooms. which fits the bill for a large dungeon. Certainly take a while to get through the entirety of Incandescent Grottos. And I was very close to running this. I put this in my Hexcrawl for my family, and they were talking about going to it many times. And as I read all the way through it, I was ready to go, and it never happened. It never manifested. But, yeah, overall, it seemed pretty solid. It seemed like it has some fun encounters and stuff, so we can run that. And then this one, for a smaller one, Tomb of the Hunters, level 1 for Shadowdark. Very small dungeon, 5 rooms. Pretty simple stuff. Meant to just kind of be a little starter Shadowdark dungeon. So, let's put, Incandescent Grottos. And we'll put that here. And then we'll put Tomb of the Hunters. We'll put that here. And then I need a fourth one as well. Some other smaller one. I guess let's go to another trilemma one. Lair of the Lantern Worm. Perfect. Done. I'm not even going to read it. Just going to put Lair of the Lantern Worm. And that'll go there. Now, technically, you'd think that's a lair. You'd probably be right, but it seems more like a dungeon. A lair is distinguished, I guess, by being a single creature, or a single type of creature. Whereas this seems to be... I don't know, I guess it is sort of a single type of creature, along with the Lantern Worm. But anyways, alright, we have our dungeons done. And we did that, so then I just want to look up info on the lairs, and what you have to say about lairs. Lairs are where monsters live in the wilderness. They can be of natural origin, built or repurposed, and are rarely bigger than a few rooms, unlike dungeons. They can also be encountered inside dungeons. Can be very well hidden and difficult to find just by chance. Adventurers will have to follow the monsters or their tracks to their lair to find it. There are 2 possible scenarios. Faction encounter in a hex with a lair. In this case, we use the monster's percent in lair. Use 20% by default, or 0 if the monster does not live in lairs. Determine whether PCs find the lair or come across a patrol. Faction encounter in a hex adjacent to a lair. In this case, only a patrol can be encountered. Roll on the appropriate biome encounter table to generate the kind of monster that lives here. Then roll for their total number and the amount of treasure they have. Once these numbers are known, generate the proportion of monsters that are outside the lair by rolling 1d6, multiplying the result by 10%. Okay. PCs enter a forest hex containing a lair that was not generated beforehand because only the outline of the sandbox was rolled. They have no idea there's a lair here, but a random encounter with members of the Hex faction, who are inhabitants of the lair in this case, takes place. First, we roll on the biome encounter table and get goblins. We then check a bestiary and see that their percent in lair is 50%. There's a 50-50 chance that the monsters are encountered in their lair in the wilderness. We roll and get 70, meaning that the PCs encounter a patrol. Finally, we roll for their number and treasure. We respectively get 200 goblins, rounding the number can be useful, and a treasure of 4,000 silver pieces and 4 gems. To find out how the goblins are distributed between the lair and the patrol, we roll 1d6, get 4. We multiply it by 10% and thus obtain 40%. That means 60% of the monsters, 120, are inside the lair, while the others, 80 goblins, are out in the wilderness. We then roll 1d8 and get an 8. The 80 goblins are actually divided in 2 groups of 40 monsters. The first one is the patrol encountered on the lair hex. To find out where the second group is, we roll 1d8 and get 3. This means that this one is lurking around a castle. They may be scheming a plan to infiltrate the castle or to besiege it. If we had rolled a 5 and the goblins had been in the hex containing a village, they could have been looting or stealing. Finally, we roll 1d8 to generate the layout of the lair and get a 6. We distribute the remaining 120 goblins between the 4 rooms of the lair according to the proportions. This should look like this, and then you divide based on the numbers here, percentages, and distribute the loot among those rooms, blah blah blah. And that's the whole process. Okay, I mean, it all kind of makes sense, and I think it's interesting. And if you missed that, by the way, that means that the players encountered a patrol of 40 goblins. Yes, 40 goblins. On patrol. That's the random encounter. Huh. That's old school, baby. And you encounter 40 goblins, and the exact nature of that encounter and how they view them, how they see them, or, you know, who sees who first. I would imagine 40 goblins are not uber stealthy or anything, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. So that's why we have encounter distance rolls and reaction rolls and stuff to determine how that plays out. Or the DM could just be like, all right, you see him off in the distance. But the important thing here to note is a little bit of knowledge on the player's part that, you know, thinking realistically, like, hey, there's goblins here. My players would just be like, okay, we kill the goblins and we keep going. Not really giving it a thought. But yeah, the important thing is here to simulate a realistic setting, a realistic world. There are goblins here. There are other goblins nearby. They are likely in a safe location for them, i.e. a lair. And everybody has some kind of treasure except for peasants. So yeah, the goblins do have treasure, and you could get it if you go to their lair and you track these goblins back to their home, or follow them back to their home, or what have you. And generally this should be something players at low level are maybe interested in. I mean, clearing out 120 goblins in a lair is kind of tricky. But 4,000 silver, I have no idea the metric that they're this is like system agnostic, you know, so I have no idea what kind of system this is designed for. But I mean, if we just assume it's based off of like BX, you know, like OSC or something, 4,000 silver is pretty comparable to our to Shadowdark numbers, so it's 400 gold. 400 gold is, for us, I mean, a pretty good amount. It's not insane considering that we got that half a bronze rod, 150 gold, and the globe that's 200 gold. But this is cold hard cash, which is kind of nice in some ways. So yeah, but you could hire mercenaries to help you wipe out some goblins here. But that might be more costly than it's worth. But again, it's not the DM's job to really think about if it's worth it or not. It's just our job to put these things in the world to simulate a realistic fantasy setting. And then the players do what they will, and the goblins do what they will. You know, the goblins are there. They're likely going to be trouble. They're going to be troublesome for surrounding civilization, surrounding people. So the fact is, our village here has 2 monster lairs near it. 3 of them, really. 4 of them, really. I'm sorry. 4 of them near it. And that is something to consider for the region. And if you're gonna, if you're the type of players that prefer to be led around a little bit by the nose and in search of heroic adventure and stuff, having a lair of goblins nearby, the treasure is largely incidental, because it's more just like, hey, there's 200 goblins that have settled in nearby in the woods. They're kind of a big trouble to the town. And maybe, you know, your quest involves going to that nearby city or something to try and petition for military aid or blah, blah, blah. And maybe if you make a good enough case, the Lord Ruler or whatever sends 20 soldiers with you to help deal with the goblins, or I don't know, who knows what. And maybe those soldiers help you clear out the goblins, but then they want part of that treasure because, you know, they did a lot of the work, and, you know, so on and so forth. Again, this is the point of a sandbox hexcrawl, is you're just putting these things in the world and running it as a simulated setting here. So, yeah, all right. So I like this idea. Let's work on... So I think the first thing we do have to is determine the creature type. And that's going to be off of the encounters, which is this. Encounters per biome. So we got forest here, so we're going to roll... I guess this is a 2d6. I guess? It has to be, right? The lowest number is a 2. Which means it's going to average out to be boars, wolves, goblins, bears, bandits. I suppose that's fair. Yeah, I suppose that's fair. Okay, 2d6. 7. Okay, so it's a boar lair. So then, hold on, okay, so I brought up the OSE page for boar, because this will tell us. This is pretty lame, I'll be honest. I find it funny that this is the most common result, is boars. Because, boars appear in groups of 1d6. And they're, I feel like maybe I should find some other bestiary or something like that, because I don't know if this is going to tell us the whole... I don't know if this is going to tell us the whole story here. It's just like a really lame, small amount of boars. Let me see if I can find... Yeah, I definitely can find the BX D&D, like the basic rule PDF or something, but I don't know if that includes monsters in it. Oh, it does. Okay. Let me try and find an entry for a boar. Just where boars. Dragon, berserker, boar. Okay, boar. Here it is. Number appearing. Yeah, 1 to D6. That's it, and no treasure. That's the whole thing. There's nothing to say about it. And they're just regular boars. It's not like they're special. There's really no point in dealing with this lair in any way, because they're just boars. They're not... Unless you come up with something interesting about the boars, that something is wrong or really different with them, or, you know, they're corrupted or mutated, you know, something like that, or you change it to giant boars. It's kind of, kind of a big nothing burger, honestly. So I find it funny it's the most common result in forest, because it's just nothing. But it's also... Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's realistic. it is. It's fucking realistic, so I can't argue with it too much. So there's your boar lair. Alright, next is grasslands down there. So we can roll 2d6 for that. 4. Alright, this is going to be interesting. Knolls. Okay. Knolls, baby! So knolls, you encounter them in groups of 1d6, and then I guess the lair has 3d18 or 3-2-18. I'm sorry. So that would be 3d6. And I saw a comment saying some people say that a lair should contain the max number. And then, you know, that's potentially true. But then why is there a range listed? But yeah, I think that is the case. So if you encounter a patrol or something, then they're going to be 1d6, but the lair will have the total population is 3d6. So if we roll 3d6 for how many gnolls there are total in this sort of little faction, you know, there is 9, which is a pretty small number. It's slightly below average, but yeah, I guess gnolls are, you know. Unless I'm not doing this correctly, but I thought I was. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So that's what I don't understand, because it says gnoll groups of 20 plus are led by a gnoll with 3 hit dice instead of 2. How would you ever encounter a group of 20 unless you just ignore the I'm pretty sure I would. The first number. Oh, monster lairs in wilderness will usually be 5 times the number normally met in dungeon. OSE doesn't include the word usually. Oh, okay. So the numbers listed are 5 times that for wilderness. So the numbers shown are just for dungeons. Which is interesting, because, yeah, you'd think that that would be displayed here for number appearing, but it does not. So that means a patrol of gnolls will be 5d6, and the whole lair population in total is 15d6. So now, yeah, okay, and the boar count would be 5 times that as well. So our boar population total is 13 as a total amount. And all of those could be on patrol together or anything like that. Okay. So that probably should be represented here as like 13. You know, I gotta say, okay, this has nothing to do with any of this, but right. Normally, for all of these solo videos and stuff, I put on the same YouTube channel in the background. Absolutely chill music. And I'm very aware that it's all AI generated. But I like it. And then I saw some comments talking about what music they listen to in RPG and stuff. And a lot of people said Dungeon Synth, which is what that other channel is and all that. But then they were like, you know, talking about how there's just too much AI slop Dungeon Synth music out there. And they only listen to, you know, non-AI. But then, like, so I put this on, which is not a non-AI. And it's just like, it seems like barely music, I guess. Maybe it's just not my style compared to It Absolutely Chills. But I'm just going to switch over to them. Because it's just a lot more enjoyable to my eardrums to listen to this stuff. So, AI or not, whatever. Anyways, okay, Boar Lair 13. We're going to put that there. All right, so now Knolls. 15d6 total. So I'm going to do an 8 and a 7. And we got 59 total. That's how many Knolls there are in this little faction. So we'll go Knoll Lair 57. So we know the total count. Excellent. And they're going to have treasure. They have treasure type D. And if I look at treasure type D here, averages out to 3,900 gold pieces. So yeah, the Knoll Lair, that's big money, but also really tough for level 1. That is absolutely the type of thing where you have to muster like a small army to go and wipe out the Knolls once and for all. Because a Knoll has, let's see here, AC 14, 2 hit dice, so you're looking at like 9 hit points. And they do 2d4 damage plus 1. Yeah. So, I mean, with a clever strat, I guess, if you can divide and conquer, they're not, like, insanely powerful. 2d4 is rough. But they only have plus 1 on their attack rolls, and they only have 9 HP. The 14 AC is probably the trickiest part, but, you know, with some clever plans, divide and conquer, and separate them and stuff, and if you can keep catching them on patrols, because on patrol... There's, well, I mean, there's quite a few, I guess. There's 5d6 on patrols, according to how I understand this to be. And 5d6 averages out to, like 17. I suppose that's not, I mean, realistically, I think that's pretty fair. Because they're going to travel as a big mob anyways. I think that's how I meant to do it. Okay, no, damn it. So they're supposed to give a number? Wandering monsters in the wilderness. Second value indicates... okay, I get it now. I get it now. Okay. I didn't read this clearly enough. So they give 2 numbers. And those two numbers help you determine wandering monsters in a dungeon, monster lair in a dungeon, or in other words, like how many monsters of that type are going to be in a dungeon total. Then you use the second value, which is that same number, and that's for how many you encounter in the wilderness on patrol or whatever, wandering. And then you multiply that value by 5 for the total of the monster lair in the wilderness. Okay, it's all coming together, everything coalescing, getting clearer. So, in that case, 3d6 is how many we would encounter on patrol in the wilderness, wandering or whatever. And then 15d6 is the whole layer in the wilderness. So both of the wilderness numbers are derived off the second value of 3d6. Okay, I got it. So that means that it's still the case that you can't really encounter a patrol of 20 plus. But that doesn't mean that there aren't groups of 20 plus, because chances are there's going to be a group 20 plus in the lair. I mean, pretty much chances are. So, blah, 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 blah. If only a patrol... Oh, if the lairs encounter, roll 1d8 to determine in which hex the wandering monsters are located. Okay. So I feel like they do a slightly different procedure than what I just all said. Because you're rolling for the total number, which we did, 59. The amount of treasure they have, which we could calculate exactly, but we get the general gist of it. An average of 3,900 gold. Then once those numbers are known, generate the proportion of monsters that are outside the lair by rolling 1d6 and multiplying the result by 10%. So that is a different procedure, but I suppose that works. So we know there's 59, and then 30% are going to be outside the lair. So you'd have to figure out 30% of 59, 30% of 60. I'm just gonna fucking, percentages are like the worst. I'm just no. What is 30% of 59? Calculate. All right, so it's about 17 or 18. Fine. So then, so if you find the lair, then you roll 1d8 to determine which hex the wandering monsters are located, because you might need to know that for whatever reason. And if you roll an 8 on that, because there's only, 7 options available if you're numbering all the hexes around it. If you roll an 8, then you divide the monster force into 2 groups and roll 1d8 for each. If only you encounter the patrol. So if we just encounter wandering encounter, we have a random encounter with gnolls, whether we're in the hex with the lair or not. Then you roll a d8, and on an 8, the wandering monsters are also divided into 2 groups. And you have to roll another d8 to generate the position of the second group. It's a little complicated, but again, that's why none of this is done like at the table, really. I mean, you could, but it's not really done unless I think if you really have this all down and you understand every step of it and it's all pretty basic, it's probably fairly quick to just do at the table. Just say, okay, give me a second, and then you do a few rolls. So, yeah, so one of the random encounter things, remember from that specific random encounter roll where there's a wizard or a dragon or something, one of the most common results was faction encounter. Yeah. the faction encounter. And that means that if you're in a lair, you're in a hex with a lair, you're going to encounter that lair, that type of creature, blah, blah, blah. But then it can also be you're in a hex adjacent to a lair, in which case you encounter the Wandering Patrol. So these lairs are really important to have sprinkled around because it determines a lot of, like, your random encounters and stuff. And it's a little, like, oh, what a coincidence, you know, there's gnolls that live relatively nearby, and we just keep encountering gnolls. But that's only if you get the faction result on the random encounter, and there's, you know, a lot of results possible, so it's not necessarily the case. But it makes it really easy of just like, what type of creature do they encounter? Well, they're near the gnoll lair, they encounter gnolls. Pretty simple. Alright, so I like that. And actually generating the layer and everything, we don't have to do that. But yeah, we'd roll a d8 because this is not a small group or alone. So you can get one of these bigger layouts instead of... If you just roll 1d3, you're looking at these two. It's either a single room or 2 rooms, whereas the bigger groups and stuff can get a whole set of 5 rooms to their lair, but that's the limit that they push. It's 5 rooms for the biggest of lairs. And this isn't really any, this isn't really saying any specifics of the size of these rooms, the nature of the rooms or anything. It's just some sort of division between, in the middle of the lair in some way, so that you don't necessarily encounter all the creatures at once, you know, like if you roll a 1 or something. But it is possible. If I roll the no lair and I roll a 1, they're all in one single area together. They're in one, like, encampment or whatever. And all the treasures in that one little area. It is possible. Yeah, alright, I think I get lairs pretty well, or relatively well now, so that's interesting. So now let's go to the marsh. So we're going to go back to our biome random encounter thing. So marsh, and we're going to roll 2d6 on this table. And we got a 4, yep. So frogmen lair, alright, frogmen, love them. Love them frogmen. So let me get... okay. There is no OSE frogman. I have to find some other frogman. I do have to find some other frogmen stat block. Okay. Do I have an OSR game? Do I know of one that has frogmen? I mean, Shadowdark does not have number appearing, which is really, really unfortunate. I wish they included that. So let me, boy, let me poke around a second. I think I might have some sort of solution. Glog might have stuff. I'm looking at Swords and Wizardry. Frog. No, definitely not here. They only have giant fish. Really? Not even giant frog? Giant killer frog. Okay, basically no. What are my other options? Well, we can look at AD&D, I suppose. That probably has frogmen. Frog? That's giant frog. Fuck. How am I gonna find number appearing for frogmen? Oh boy. Frog men. I mean, they might call them frog folk. Oh, OD&D has frog folk. Okay, hold on. I may have found something. Oh, I can bring this back now. Frog. Yeah, no. Lied to me about offering up the frogmen. You gave me giant frogs, but that's not what we're looking for. Oh, okay. So this is from Temple of the Frog, one of the oldest old school modules. Number appearing 30 to 300. Yeah. Oh boy, that is pretty hefty, man. Pretty hefty amount of frogmen. I mean, we could look at any sort of similar creature, I suppose. It doesn't have to specifically be... It doesn't have to specifically be frog men. It could be lizard men or troglodytes or something like that. Let me look. All right, let me just look at OSE and look at the monster list. See if I see anything else pops out at me that would be like kind of a similar creature, like kind of like gnolls. You know, they're kind of like, we could use the same number for gnolls and probably call it a day if we didn't care too much. But I don't know, maybe frogs breed more or something, so maybe they're specific and they get more numbers. Or there's goblin, you can just use goblin numbers. Lizard men. Let me look at lizard man. I mean, there's semi-intelligent tribal aquatic humanoids with reptilian heads and tails, often encountered in swamps and dungeons. I mean, it sounds pretty close to a frogman. Now, yes, I know lizard men are on here, but so are mushroom men, moth men, and snake men. And I mean, you think I'm really going to come up with stat blocks and number appearing for all of these from like actual proper source material? Seems unlikely, so I don't know. I think just use lizard man numbers for all of them. Because, I mean, functionally, what is the difference between a lizard man, a snake man, and a frog man? How is their culture different? I mean, that's a racist thing. I'm saying racist stuff. I'm sure there is a difference, but are their number appearing going to be drastically different? I don't think so. So let's just work off of the lizard man, which is hefty, by the way. The total number in the lair in the wilderness is going to be 30d6. Which I suppose corresponds quite well to that other number I saw for Temple of the Frog that said 30 to 300. I mean, it's not quite that much, obviously, but it's quite a bit. So 30d6. I think we can just slash roll 30d6. 106. That's how many are in there. So we're gonna just type that in there, and they're real close by. But maybe we have some arrangement. Maybe they're not all bad. Maybe the frogmen are a little nicer. I don't know. They keep to themselves. They like to live in the swamp. They don't have an interest in eating humans or anything. So maybe it's not all bad. I'm gonna put frogmen lair 106. Big time numbers. Okay, frogmen lair 106. Okay. And that's all I really care about right now. So I don't have to generate how many are on patrol or blah, blah, blah. So that's fine. And then we got one last one up in that marsh as well. So we'll do another 2d6 for that marsh. It's an 8, which is zombies. Ooh. All right, all right, all right. Now you're talking zombies. They appear as a mass of 20d6. 71 zombies all up in that lair. What does a zombie lair look like? Like just ruins? Maybe some sort of ruins, I guess? Or maybe a site of like some horrific battle? Maybe it's everyone that used to live in this castle. There was like some horrific battle there. And now this castle is deserted and all the inhabitants are zombies over here. Or maybe a necromancer now lives in the castle. Now you're thinking. Now you're thinking stuff. Zombie lair. I mean, it's technically a lair, but, you know, it's not like they have... They're not all hanging out and huddling together and banging and cooking dinner and shit. So it's just a collection of zombies in that area. You probably don't want to wander in that area. I feel like you're going to encounter zombies. Okay. So we have our 4 dungeons. We have our 4 layers. Then we just have the castle and various points of interest I didn't label yet, which can be generated when we go there. And then there's also the city. So what does it say about the city? Size. All right, let's generate its size. 4. It is medium size. So about 1,500 people, which seems not like a medium-sized city. I think maybe we'd call that more like a town. But the village described here... Okay, hamlets rarely exceed 20. Villages average 100. That's true. Okay, so they're more a village of 100 people. So this is your average, like, rural village. That's mostly, like, farming or, you know, tradesmen, pottery, mining, things like that. But they will have a little market. Blacksmith. There might be a lot of people coming through there or something that influence in one way or the other. But yeah, cities then are more of what I consider like a town. 1,500 people. No one, you don't know everyone in the town or anything like that. Whereas the village, you might know most of the people in the village. But this isn't like a metropolis or anything like this. Isn't like a capital city. Because even the biggest one only has 2,000 people. And if I go and I look up population of, let's say, Baldur's Gate, you know, 125,000. So clearly, this generator is not interested in generating your capital cities or anything like that. Unless this is meant to be like the number of families, but I don't think that's the case. I think people always talk about like the population of like actual medieval cities and stuff. Usually kind of like if you look at medieval London and stuff. Around 1300, the population of medieval London reached around 100,000 people. So, yeah, if you're generating a capital city or something for your setting, And according to historians, I guess, Rome had like upwards of 1 million people living in it at one point, which is pretty insane. Yeah, I guess so. But the point is, obviously, yeah, we're not looking at a massive like setting defining kind of capital city here. This is just more akin to a town, a bigger town, where you can probably do most of your trading and stuff. 1,500 people. There's going to be a number of blacksmiths, general stores, markets, taverns, things like that. So let's generate this city. There is actually a section on name. First roll 1d30 on the table below, then roll on the appropriate component tables on the next pages. Okay. We can do that. We got 19. So we got D Thorpe, such as Enselthorpe. Okay, so then we're going to the D column, and we're rolling a D24. We got 2. Baileythorpe is the name of our city. Alright. Wouldn't be a name I'd ever come up with, but I can't argue with the generator. Baileythorpe. Alright, and population 1,500 or so. Okay, and then if we wanted to go in more detail about it, we'd roll the main occupation. So we'd roll 3 of these based on the city grade. And this is kind of what it's mostly known for. And this is a D10. So we got cattle breeding, brewing, and pottery. That's what they're mostly known for, which is kind of an odd mixture. But I think probably the intention is there's quite a bit of farmland and vineyards and stuff around it, as well as numerous pottery workshop, which suggests like a quarry nearby as well. But this is kind of on the edge of our sort of starting hex area, so we don't know exactly what's around it other than that marsh. But I don't know, is the marsh good terrain for like a clay quarry? I have no idea. Clay pit. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't think so. I mean, it doesn't sound like it. But I don't know enough about clay pits to say otherwise. So, you know, not necessarily the entire hex is marsh, so maybe the clay pit is on like the edge of the marsh there or something. You know, I don't know. It works out. But okay, so that if you wanted to figure out what the city is mostly known for, it's those things: brewing, cattle breeding, and pottery. And then roll D20 twice to generate up to 2 characteristics of the city. We got 4 and 18, so nothing. And tiered. Oh, it's a cool tiered town of 1,500 people. So maybe it's on a big hill, and the upper class is all up on the hill. It's not like, yeah. I mean, you're not coming up with fucking what's the name of the Minas Tirith? Yeah, I mean, we're not generating Minas Tirith here, which had a population of who knows how much. According to some fan estimates, Minas Tirith had a population of around 500,000, which was roughly equivalent to the population of Constantinople at its height. However, by the time of Lord of the Rings, population of Minas Tirith had declined to around 50,000 due to war, plague, and other factors. No matter what, nothing on the scale of what we're generating here. Which is kind of a bummer, because it's like, what if I wanted to generate a big-ass giant city? I guess you could just use these tools to generate that and ignore the size table. Okay, and then appearance 6. It's eerie. It's an eerie town. Why? Oh, hold on. We got a few special locations here. 12, 11, 9. So it's got some gallows. Ooh, it's kind of eerie. It's got a big fountain in it. And it's got a famous street in it. Probably where the gallows are. Gallows Street. Of course. Everybody knows about it. So a lot of executions have occurred here. So maybe a past leader of the town was famously quite strict on crime or something. Or he was just a sadist. Or both. And we could keep going. I mean, we don't really have to do all this because blah, blah, blah. But, you know, this is the type of stuff you might be interested in rolling if you want to generate a city in your setting near your starting village, because your players are probably going to go here to sell loot. And making it a unique place that they remember is a good thing. One last thing, I hate to open more PDFs than I already have open, because I'm sure this program is going to crash at some point, just like Foxit did. But I want to bring up the Tome of Adventure Design, because I spent a bunch of money on it, and it's a massive book, and I'd be remiss if I didn't open it. We did look at it one time. I know, we got really carried away just looking at it, because it's a very fascinating book. But okay, so let's look at the Tome of Adventure Design, because these, I'm pretty sure you can generate cities here. You can generate fucking everything. Of course you can generate cities. Look at these bookmarks. It's insane. Dungeon, yeah, betting games, miscellaneous. Cities. Here we go. City adventure. Pride of the town. Here you go. If we wanted to roll on this. D100. Now you're talking my language. 69, baby. Oh my god. The best number. Remarkable fatness or thinness of locals. Okay, well, if we want to go with the eerie theme, I guess everyone here just looks shockingly thin. Like gaunt. This is a gaunt city. There you go. That's something. Unusual domestic animals used. We don't have to roll on that. You know, that's a little gonzo. That's a little weird. So we don't have to do that. Or odd custom address. You know, this is all optional stuff. You don't have to roll on all these tables, because they could get a little Looney Tunes, and your players are just not going to be able to remember all these weird little details about every city and stuff. So yeah, I would say you probably want to roll on one of these things, like the Pride of the Town, or Unusual Animals, or Odd Custom Address, or Odd Behavior, or something. You know, roll on like one of these. Author's favorite method for inventing a city is to begin by rolling for the identity of the town's central open area, table 425, to assume that this says a great deal about the city's personality. A city with its central area and culture based on a huge graveyard is a very different place from a city that centers on a gladiatorial arena, which in turn different from a city built around a sacred flower garden. The open area will be large, centrally located, and will play a large part in the city's culture. Then draw a couple of main streets leading to the city gates from the central area, and a couple of cross streets so the city map isn't just one large hub, and you're good to go. Alright, so let's roll on our open area, our big open area here. probably a graveyard. We rolled a 3. Nope, it's a arena of some kind. Racing or gladiatorial. Well, we're kind of rolling on like 8 billion different things, so I don't know if our city has an identity here. I'm just kind of rolling. We were doing the gallows thing. Now we're like thin and we have a arena. I don't know where to go with this. Yeah, if we go with graveyard, we just pick this. That can work with the gallows, and it's like a really kind of eerie place. Everybody is thin. There's a massive graveyard in the center of town. It's not a pleasant place, but they make some damn good pottery here, boy. You better believe it. And that's pretty much, yeah, I mean, you know, the rest is just, okay, then you can roll on like the latest news, possibly untrue. So what's going on in Bailey Thorpe? Buildings keep falling down or suffering structural damage. This city is just collapsing. This is just, oh god, it is not in good shape. It needs heroes to come in and save it somehow. Fix all the problems. Or really just tear the whole place down and rebuild it from scratch. If we were going to pick one, though, you could have an outbreak of undeath in nearby community or even within the city. Because death is a very central theme of this place. And you have a zombie lair right over here. And possibly a necromancer living in this castle. I think this can all be somewhat connected somewhat nicely. A necromancer was probably drawn to Bailey Thorpe just by the amount of death in the air here. And is perhaps, you know, sneaking in and slowly, like, raising all corpses that are in the graveyard in the center of town. I mean, really, you're just fucking asking for a necromancer at this point. Okay, I think we have Bailey Thorpe sort of sorted out. Because we almost certainly are going there. We gotta sell treasure. So no wonder we're not, like, affiliated with them or anything. We don't want anything to do with them. We're affiliated with the Frogmen. That's who we belong to. We're best friends with the Frogmen. We also need a name for our hamlet, so let's generate that off the sandbox generator. So we'll roll on this D30 table again. 10. DF. Okay, so we get our D again. Get our D. Pulin. No, I refuse. Julvet. What the fuck are these names? Dude, I can come up with better names than these. This is just this is you smashing the keyboard. This is ridiculous. You're telling me the Tome of Adventure Design doesn't have city names? No, I suppose it doesn't have city names. I think Shadowdark might have city names, actually. Has NPC names, settlements, no, it has tavern names and shops. No city name. Okay, well, I mean, I could just come up with one. I just thought we'd use Sandbox, but now I hate it. I hate every one of these D24 names. That's not good. But most of these are going to be... Okay, let's go with CA. Here we go. We'll go with something different. Okay, so D20. 15. Mary. Yeah, this is already questionable. Mary Castle. Our little tiny rural village. No! I hate all of this. I'm just going to come up with my own name. It's going to be called... Alright, it's going to be called Valbrook. Valbrook. Even though it's not located on a brook. The guy that named it, a little insane. But it's called Valbrook. Done. Don't question it ever. Alright, I think that's good. I think we have our starting hex. Our starting sort of hex crawl. It's very dense, as we went over. You know, there's a lot to do here. But that's the thing. It's like, players are probably going to want to just go into another dungeon, most likely, or they're going to want to go to the city and fuck shit up. So we have plenty of dungeon options. We have multiple wilderness things that they could do, including layers they could take on or something. And then there is a city nearby that they could fuck around with. So there's like plenty of opportunity, and you could space this out like 5 times greater distances, you know? So the Knoll lair could be here, the Tomb of the Hunters could be here and stuff, and then it's just like, why? You know? You're just like, okay, you spend 2 days hiking, and I'll roll random encounters. It's basically just like, how many random encounters do you want to have between like the actual fun stuff of locations? That's pretty much it. So yeah, I mean, I initially I was incredulous about the density of locations, but I suppose it's not too bad. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go off book. I'm gonna go off random generation. And I'm just going to call this the Necromancer's Lair, because I think that's what it is now, and I think it's appropriate. So, that's sort of the villain of our starting region overall. But, you know. I think the Frogmen and the Gnolls probably go to battle a lot. I think they do war with each other quite a bit. Because the Gnolls are really aggressive. And I think Valbrook probably also suffers from the Gnolls once in a while as well. But we don't know what's in these other hexes to the south. So they might have some other bullshit that they're dealing with, which is why they're not overrunning Valbrook. But I feel like the Frogmen Gnolls are kind of evenly matched. Frogmen are weaker, but they have twice the numbers. And maybe they have home field advantage if they do the battles in the marshes and stuff. Because they're probably on the defensive compared to the evil Gnoll creatures. The boars, you know, they're boars. They don't have any intentions. And then the zombies, the Necromancer is kind of using them to, I think he's maybe amassing the zombies for an all-out assault on Baileythorpe, and he's just slowly wearing that city down by resurrecting and animating some from their graveyard every so often to wear the place down. Before he does like a full onslaught to take over the place. I think that's all pretty good. You know, I think that's all pretty good. As for the Necromancer's Wish dungeon, I don't know. I didn't read it, so I don't know exactly the story of that. And maybe we want to change that or intertwine it further. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think we've got a good foundation to work off of. I'm kind of interested in getting going now, but I'm going to have to end it here. We will start properly next time, level 1. We'll probably go to Baileythorpe, sort of sell off our treasure, buy some stuff, learn what's happening there. And then I think maybe Tomb of the Hunters for a really like a simple level 1 dungeon. See how much XP we can grab. Because technically we're not going to get any XP for the treasure we found. That was all getting us to level 1. So we gotta get out there. We gotta do some adventuring. For now, though, my name is Mang. This has been solo roll manging with Shadowdark. I'll see you fine folks in the next part.